As a father with young kids that loves comic books and would love to experience comic books with my young children, I find myself in a very weird position oftentimes with DC Comics. They just don't put out much that's actually kid-friendly, but they do have their YA graphic novel line, which for my oldest child, you would think would be right in his wheelhouse. His dad has a comic book YouTube channel. He's got an enormous collection of DC Comics. He happens to love the DC Comics universe. You would think it'd be a perfect fit for me and my children, but it just isn't. They do so many weird things with their YA graphic novel line. I can't even fathom the reason that they come to a lot of the decisions with what they publish. For the most part, with their YA graphic novel line, they're going to take an established hero. They're going to do some type of race swap, sexuality swap. DC Comics are absolutely all in as far as grooming when it comes to young kids. Obviously, Nubia, Real One, Gotham High. I Am Not Starfire is really the one that put them on the map. Just really infamous stuff when it comes to really low quality books and stories and bastardizing established DC Comics heroes. Although there have been a few successes here and there, like the Raven and Beast Boy books, and obviously Primer, who's an actual original hero. I don't know why they're not pushing into that a little bit harder than taking their established heroes and breaking them, I guess, for the YA graphic novel model. Apparently, kids all over the world are just frothing at the mouth to see like Bruce Wayne gay in high school, while you have Dogman absolutely brutalizing DC Comics as far as sales and reach into that kid's audience. Maybe they should learn a lesson or two from Dav Pilkey and his strategy as far as reaching kids, because I'll tell you this, my kid loves Dogman. I bought him a deluxe edition with like 7 of those books. He read them all in like 2 days because they're so good. He doesn't read any of the DC stuff. And quite frankly, even if he was interested in the DC YA graphic novel line, I wouldn't let him read them anyway, because for the most part, they're trash across the board. Today, I'm going to talk about 2 of these YA graphic novels that they've got coming out. Absolutely baffling decisions for absolutely different reasons. One of them, of course, is going to do a race swap on a character. I wouldn't be surprised if they also did a sexuality swap on that character. And then the other one just feels like the wrong character, period, to deliver to kids. Let's talk about the first one, and I don't get this at all. Girl Taking Over, a Lois Lane story, reimagines Lois Lane as an Asian American teenager from writer Sarah Kuhn, a small town girl with a big city summer internship trying to get a handle on friendship, romance, and a burgeoning career. Normally I can understand these choices to a degree, like I can understand kind of where they're coming from, but this one is absolutely baffling. Sarah Kuhn doesn't appear to be an author with an existing fan base, not really of note. She's written a few comic books here and there and a few novels, but it doesn't appear that like she's really popular or really sells. But even if this is successful, this race swapping of Lois Lane, and history absolutely predicts that it won't be successful, she has no ownership of Lois Lane, even a race swap version of the character. There's no long-term monetary gain to make this change. And as my man Jervain Dargan says, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. And Lois Lane isn't even a hero, so okay. I assume that the steady stream of established DC Comics heroes that were going to be like race swapped and sexuality swapped was going to stop once Michelle Wells was out of there, because she was the lady that was in charge when we got I Am Not Starfire, Nubia, Real One, Gotham High, and all that stuff. But apparently that's still the strategy. Makes no sense whatsoever. They're never ever going to do anything with the race swap Lois Lane. The only time you're going to see Lois Lane in anything other than comic books is as the love interest or wife of Superman. There's like no long-term gain or benefit across the board. Plus, with what she's doing, it's kind of an original character. Wouldn't you want ownership points on that? What if it becomes a franchise and ends up being really popular and you get like nothing out of it? When you hear Sarah Kuhn talk about this, you kind of figure it out. She feels like she's kind of a narcissistic person. And the only way she could write like an inspired Lois Lane story is if Lois Lane became her. This is what Sarah Kuhn had to say. Lois Lane is my idol. As a kid, I imprinted on her immediately and dreamed of becoming a hard-charging reporter on a quest for the truth, who also gets burgers and freshly squeezed orange juice delivered to her desk at 9 a.m. I was always desperately searching for some tiny scrap of representation in the stories I loved, and Lois had dark hair, so sometimes I'd fantasize that she was Asian American like me. But if you're just going to write a story about you, why don't you just make like an autobiographical comic book graphic novel or something like that? But being a father of 3 kids that are half white, half Asian, like I kind of get it. My kids are really little, so I get where she's coming from. But if you look at her pictures, she's clearly in her mid-30s to early 40s. Like, wouldn't you be over this by now? Like, you're literally a professional author. You create stuff. You've actually made comic books. If you really wanted to see this version of Lois Lane, why didn't you make it already and just call it another character? And then you would have some ownership of her. It's just a really strange decision, in my opinion. Like, I kind of get where she's coming from. Like I said, I have kids kind of in the same situation. And I'm a comic book fan, but I'm obviously a father first. But I wouldn't want anyone to go out there and start like race swapping characters because theoretically they think my kids like need representation that exactly represents who they are in comic books. Like, that's kind of strange. My kid's really into Dogman. He's not a dog. My boys are into Spider-Man and Captain America. I don't think it has to do with the racial identity of the characters. I think it's just because they have really good designs as far as the costumes and they have cool superpowers. But what do I know? I'm just a comic book YouTuber that's also a customer that has kids in the age range that this thing probably should be targeting. But I guess the author just had to see herself as the hero. Is kind of weird stuff to me. This next one is also really strange. John Constantine explores teenage chaos magic in new DC project from Cami Garcia. Is the world ready for a YA take on DC's edgy chaos magician, John Constantine? This one is absolutely baffling as well. Constantine, Hellblazer, is an R-rated character. Sure, the Teen Titans characters work in YA graphic novel format because Teen Titans Go is a known IP to kids. Why would you make a YA version of Constantine? There's virtually no awareness of the character amongst kids, and they probably can't read the comics or watch the movie or TV show, even if they like it. So is the strategy here to get them into a character that they can't explore further because it's not appropriate for them? Maybe it's because Constantine is bisexual, like in canon, and they didn't want to do a sexuality swap here. So they said, well, what bisexual character can we use to make a YA graphic novel? And they came up with Constantine. Because he is popular. He's certainly one of the better known heroes within the DC Comics universe. It really feels like the DC Comics like YA graphic novel strategy is non-existent. They're like, yeah, let's do it. That's the strategy. Let's do that one. And that one is like, okay, that makes no sense whatsoever. And you got to hear this article from Den of Geek talking about Cami Garcia. Maybe you've heard about the author, but if you haven't, I'm not surprised because you're comic book fans. And she is more of a YA graphic novel, YA novelist type of personality. In the article, they say best-selling novelist Cami Garcia has become a powerhouse force in comics thanks to her work at DC. Her Teen Titans graphic novel series with fan-favorite artist Gabriel Piccolo has hit multiple bestseller charts, and her darkly brilliant, true crime-inspired tale Joker Harley Criminal Sanity has quickly become a cult smash in comic book circles. Powerhouse force in comics? Where the hell did that come from? She's had a couple of marginally successful books based off Teen Titans characters. Comic book readers, for the most part, couldn't tell you who she is or anything she's actually worked on. Why do you have to like embellish who the writer is? She's had a couple of comic books that haven't sold poorly compared to the other DC YA graphic novels, but when you compare them like to the market itself, they're not all that successful. Like, why are we calling her a powerhouse anything? Maybe she was doing creator-owned stuff, but in the world of DC Comics, she's a fucking nobody. Nobody knows who she is. And claiming Joker Harley Criminal Sanity has quickly become a cult smash in comic book circles, that's a lie. I'm not going to say it wasn't a successful series. It was kind of, but I've had my channel going for over 4 years now. Nobody has ever mentioned this series or Cami Garcia. And you know and I know that there's nothing Cami Garcia could do for DC Comics at this time to improve their sales on anything because she's persona non grata to comic book readers themselves. Like, I don't know why they're inflating her ego and talking like she's a big deal. Mariko Tamaki and G. Will Wilson are more important and bigger deals than Cami Garcia is at this point, but I guess we just got to blow smoke up people's asses to make them feel important or something. Of course, this isn't the worst DC YA graphic novel that's going to be coming out. I actually already covered this one in a video. If you were not aware of Superman Harvest of Youth from Sina Grace, or who Sina Grace is, you need to check this out. Sina Grace is an abomination of a comic book writer, should never, ever, ever be allowed to write Superman. If you can't see the video here, there's also a link in the video description.